pleasure to kick us off. We're going to be hearing from Anders Oskal, who I somehow feel needs no introduction, but has been sort of pivotal in where we are today in terms of the Food Lab. And so he's going to provide sort of a background on how we got to this place, and then we hope to have some more dynamic conversations with both the youth that have been involved and some key people involved in this important space around food and food innovation. Anders.
Yes, good day everyone. So I will try to give you a bit of a frame as to how our work on food started, the big why, if you will. First, let me say that, of course, I am among those who are a little bit over average interested in reindeer. And this map will show you the reindeer herding areas of the world, and if you look closely, also the areas for wild reindeer and caribou. That much being said, we, of course, like to work with all the indigenous brothers and sisters and peoples of the Arctic. Many of which we have on this panel. We are very happy about that. But we live in a time of change, and we hear that a lot at this conference and others, and we see it. We see it in our everyday lives. And how do we handle this change as a small nomadic indigenous peoples, societies, communities? Change means both challenges and opportunities, but what do we mean by opportunities? Could we have a development for our societies based on our own terms? In other words, not necessarily that we are to, let's say, pursue a career in mining or oil and gas drilling, but that we could instead use our own knowledge to develop our own societies. This is what we believe to be a very core fundament of the resilience of our peoples in the future. So to address Arctic change, we've done many things, but one of them is to start to focus on food systems. Since the Arctic is changing, how can we use our own food knowledge, our own traditions in responding to this change? And many of you will probably know we have done several things. One of the things we got certain fame for was this book, which you can see at our stand outside. Lou means a reindeer herd. It's a book about food culture of all the Arctic indigenous peoples. I'm very proud to say that all the permanent participants of the Arctic Council took part in this project and in making this book, which was in 2018 deemed the world's best food book in competition with 1,372 books from 116 nations. What does that mean? It means that our youth are the best in the world. It means that our food systems can be the best in the world. And just to, in case you doubt this, let me just say that some of our youth were mostly happy that we completely outcompeted the likes of Oprah Winfrey in the finale. Let it be said, her book is really good, but ours was better. So at the core of our thinking here is, of course, also the very serious topic of food security. And in an even wider context, food sovereignty. And in that book, we have a definition of it. I won't go into that here, but invite you to have a look. Insofar as food security is a very serious concern for large parts of the Arctic, there are also some opportunities, at least as far as tundra reindeer herding goes. And when we look at our food and food traditions, it's like a perfect match with global food trends today. Whether it's about sustainability, whether it's about transparency, origin, whether it's about health, well-being, and this is quite interesting because it does show a large potential And more so, we would like to use our own knowledge, our own traditions, or as we say, sustainable to the bone. What do we mean? Well, as we work with all the indigenous peoples across the Arctic, it seems we have some core fundaments common, namely, take only what you need, utilize everything that you take, and share what you have been given. So, for thousands of years, our economies, our livelihoods were always circular. And that is also knowledge that the world needs today. Another thing which we are doing, I will quickly turn to the FoodLab, but another important thing is to try to provide some training opportunities, educational opportunities for our youth. And the way we do that is to work with different partners here, Nord University on food innovation leadership, and I'm also very glad to refer to the Harvard Welfare Center and our work on resilience and leadership, where we try to build not just competence, but also the confidence and contacts or community of our youth. Well, then let's have a look at the FoodLab, because you can now see the road that sort of led to its creation. We call it NOMAD Indigenous Food Lab, because we are nomadic and there are nomadic traditions among, so to speak, all the Arctic indigenous peoples. Seems fitting. So what is it? It's a kitchen consisting of different modules. Perhaps more importantly, also integrated with a tent, which we in Sami call lavabo. And so conceptually, then we have on the one hand a high-tech kitchen. On the other hand, we have the indigenous people's food systems around the fire. And this is a way in which we can bridge different ways of thinking about food, of understanding food. But more so, it's a platform for young people to document their own food traditions, to innovate, make new businesses, new products based on their own knowledge and resources, and thus strengthen the economic base of Arctic indigenous peoples. And we have a collaboration with Bocuse d'Or, if you know what that is, the World Championship for Chefs. So this can also attract the best chefs to come to us to learn. We don't need to be taught as much. They need to learn. Well, this is what it looks like in real life. It also has the skis underneath, so we can pull it into the tundra, into where reindeer herders are and others. And it's fully nomadic. We can move it by trailers such as these or other types of transport. For instance, a ferry to Reykjavik. So it's a multi-purpose platform, and we are still exploring the potential avenues, what we could use it for. Everything from, documenting our traditional food systems, food diplomacy, education, food competitions, you name it. But the important thing is that it's for youth engagement, to engage our indigenous youth for development on their own terms. And we have been around with it to different indigenous festivals and some other arrangements. Last year in Rome, Stockholm Plus 50 conference, and also to southern Norway. And we just have it installed in Rome as we speak, inside the UN headquarters, FAO headquarters, where we hosted 200 plus indigenous youth from all the 7 social cultural regions of UN. And had different sessions there, and the youth there will provide a declaration, which I advise everyone to read once it's ready. It's being negotiated as we speak. So I will say no more of this now, only to say that we have some tools that we can use. We have 2 such food labs now, and seeing as we are nomadic, they need to be nomadic. Seeing as we are from the Arctic, we also have our let's say our PR department has come up with a slogan for it, which is probably the coolest kitchen in the world. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Anders. Now I'm going to propose, if it's okay, I don't know if anyone else has actual presentation material, that we just stay up there and I will sort of go to each speaker if that's okay. Does that work for everyone? All right. So, in the spirit of collaboration, as Anders mentioned, he has invited both a representative of the Arctic Athabascan Council and the Inuit Circumpolar Council to also reflect briefly on their perspective on the importance of food and food culture. So Chief Gary, if you'd like to start us off.
Thank you. I feel very honored to be here with this guests here and with this honored panel. I've been around to all of the Arctic countries, and I find that some of the ways we process food are very similar, like the smoking of meats and fish. And I think that it's important that we keep our way of our food handling. Many of the ways that other people handle their food, they don't think that ours is sanitary. But ours is not only sanitary, but it's also a very particular way that we cure our foods. And many other foods, or many other people that try and cure their foods after us that don't understand how, the foods become not so good. I'll just put it that way. And I've also found that in many places, the elders are the ones who have been teaching us how to handle our foods, and it's very important that we continue to do this, because for the generations to come, if they're only going to be taught the Western way of handling foods, then they won't be able to have the great taste that we have in our foods. Many of the ways that people handle their foods are not the same taste. They don't come out with the same taste as ours. And I believe, as Anders says, ours is the best. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Chief Gary. And now we'll hear from Herb Nakimayak.
Okay, Nanny, thank you, Anders, and everybody here on the panel. This is probably the coolest panel here too, I think, everybody says. Well, for Inuit Circumpolar Council, in all the countries that we inhabit in the Arctic, our food systems for us have been like Anders and Chief Gary says, and thank you, Chief. Our food systems have been what we've been surviving on for a long time. I'm going to look at it from a little bit of a different lens. When you talk about research, we research all the species that we harvest and then that we consume. So we've known that our food systems and how we prepare and how we store foods, whether it be for the winter or for the summer, are sound and solid. So it would be great looking ahead that science comes and works with us, because we do have knowledge, all types of knowledge systems all across the Arctic and around the world. And science, I heard earlier that science is being questioned, but we've been I'm just going to speak for Inuit. When it comes to beluga whales, we have the longest data set of belugas in the world. That's 50 years. That's older than all of us here. Things like that we've been doing that science doesn't really look at, but we need to ensure that when we talk about trade, and having our food, it would be cool to have muck duck or other species that we harvest sold at the grocery store. And we have a lot of indigenous people from the Arctic that have to move south, where they do not have access to country food, which is what we've been sustaining on for some time. You get your proteins and all the essential vitamins, so that at least you get a taste of home. So I think this program We're also working with the FAO to ensure that our knowledge systems in the food are we have support there to ensure that we can drive policy to, in each of our countries, whether it be territories or provinces, to bring our foods to the shelves in grocery stores. I think that would be very key. And when we do something like that, we're taking care of all the people that are not in the regions that we're not in the Arctic, but wherever it may be. We do have to move away for school, sometimes for work. And looking at the Northern Sea route, maybe that could be, once we get to that, as we get there, we look at that as a possible route that we can trade across Arctic nations. To come to some places, we do a big U-turn around the world, we go somewhere else and then come here. But we need to look at the lateral trade, and having that as an access point would really open doors for a lot of us in the Arctic to trade with each other, and which in the past, nations have been doing that, working together, and I think that will just enhance our quality of life. And looking ahead, as I mentioned, Indigenous knowledge systems are really key. Get to talk to everybody here when you get an opportunity about knowledge systems that we use to make decisions and even to drive policy in our region. So that's very key. I just wanted to share that today with you, and I know I'm taking time, so thank you very much. Good night.
Thanks very much, Bill. Now, I will confess that we've had some switching up on as Anders mentioned, this being about youth and youth leadership and youth capacity is a huge part of this, and they have really driven the agenda, and it's a really quite a powerful model that's been developed. And so we have brought to the table many youth, but I actually don't know who we have. So I'm going to actually ask them to introduce themselves. And then, just to be fair to them, I have a series of questions that were prepared and that only some have seen. So they're going to be talking off the cuff, so we're going to give them the chance to sort of reflect on things that they're interested in, but I am going to try and present some questions. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself when you first speak. And hopefully we'll not put you in too much of a spot for having come so graciously to join us in this conversation. So the first question I'd like to ask the youth are, why is food important to you? And what is one food innovation idea that you have? So, and I'll start here, and we'll work our way down.
Good afternoon, everybody. Kuchanki Nika Silver Fox and Uji, Danki Uji Huling, Egune H.E., Kwanlin Yunenji, Ine Iansha, Take Chogudans and H.E. So, my name is Nika Silver Fox Young. I do not have a traditional name yet. I am Wolf Clan. I live in Whitehorse, Yukon, Canada, and my mom's family is from the Little Salmon Carmacks First Nations in Carmacks, Yukon. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I was asked yesterday about this because the youth unfortunately were not able to show up, so here repping some of the other youth. For me, the question
was about why is food important to you?
Why is food important to me? Okay, so my favorite food is probably hands down going to be salmon. I am a Little Salmon Carmacks First Nations person. Salmon runs in my DNA, and it always will, and it always has been. Currently, right now, we're facing a crisis in the Yukon where our salmon stocks are really declining, and this is what extinction looks like. It is very, very frightening. I'm really fortunate because my father's family is from Newfoundland, Canada, and so I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the issues of the fish stocks there, but he really made sure to teach me the importance about fish because we just have so much respect for them, and it's such a big part of our culture. In my family, we used to have fish camps where we would harvest our salmon. We used to get salmon, king salmons that used to be about 60 to 70 kilos, maybe about 5 feet tall. Now we're getting salmon returning back that are, maybe 10 kilos max and quite small. My dad really made sure to raise a good Newfie child because I learned how to tie a fish hook well before my shoes and how to cut fish that way. But unfortunately, with my Indigenous family, we're losing that practice because we're no longer able to fish our fish. I'm still learning my language. I'm still learning my culture, but it's really important to me because salmon have been a huge backbone to our communities and to all Indigenous peoples in the Yukon and in Alaska. So having our salmon decline is really breaks my heart. It's something that I crave and I miss. For the past few years, we actually are not allowed to harvest our salmon because of how low the salmon stocks have been. 10 years ago, there was maybe about 160,000 salmon that were returned back to the natal waters in the Yukon. This past year, it was less than 50,000, and the further north it goes, or the further into the headwaters they go, we're getting lower and lower numbers. Where I'm from in Whitehorse, we have the world's longest wooden fish ladder, which is kind of cool, but not really, because like this past year, I think only 154 salmon passed this fish ladder. So 50,000 to 154, we're really losing our way of life. I really miss the fish. I really miss the taste of it. So I'm so glad when I was invited to these spaces and I got to try traditional foods from the other places. It just made me miss and realize I need to start coming to these spaces and speaking up about our salmon and talking about the catastrophic loss. But I do believe there is hope. We need to call them home. There's a lot of talks lately going on about how we need to stop disrespecting the salmon. I used to go to university, but I really didn't learn a whole much because it didn't really align with my values and the things I learned. But learning my Indigenous language, I've learned a ton of knowledge about fish and salmon. And maybe I'm just going to leave it there. I don't want to take up too much space, but I'll pass it on to the next show.
Thank you. So from salmon, we head to our Gwich'in representative. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Ja, nasito. So was Brandon Kikavich Vaji, one tuck which any fleets at Techicwali. I Techicriju Yukon Gujit, Canada Yukon at Tachakwai. My name is Brandon Kikavich. I'm one tuck which in, and Old Crow is my hometown. Old Crow is in the Yukon, and the Yukon is a territory of the country of Canada. Why is food important to me? Because when I eat it, it keeps me alive, first of all. My people are heavily reliant on caribou. We've been heavily reliant on caribou for thousands of years. We have techniques, processes that are tried, tested, and true that work perfectly well, that have been handed down for thousands of years. We refer to them as anikali. And anikali started out just herding techniques and herding caribou into like natural structures like mountains and stuff like that, and then eventually evolved into what we call v'tzaitthach, caribou fences. We are referred to as the Vantukwichin, which means the inhabitants of lake country, or more scientifically, I guess, the inhabitants of a wetland. There's a giant wetland directly north of my community. We've protected the entire wetland for all time. We went through the Ramsar Convention with the United Nations in order to get that protection back in 1982. We've protected over 30% of our traditional territory now, and we are now facing extreme third-party pressures for oil and gas development and for the precious metals for the transition that we're making right now. And these third-party pressures threaten the caribou herd, because our caribou herd, the porcupine caribou herd, is the last thriving caribou herd in North America. The last one. The reason why it's the last thriving caribou herd in North America is directly related to the fact that we protected our most sacred areas. And we rely on caribou not just for sustenance, but for clothes, for shelter, and for a spiritual resonance. And we are in a very unique situation, probably the most unique situation in the world, I think. So the entire Yukon used to be all permafrost, and now our traditional territory is the last stronghold of permafrost. And we have an opportunity to say that we want to protect our entire traditional territory, one, to keep the permafrost intact, and two, to keep biodiversity flourishing, namely the caribou, which will ensure that we have food security moving into the future, which provides us with a bit of a dilemma because, you know, we have to make a living to survive, and, you know, in the north, the best way to make a living is through mining resources. Once again, that will threaten our food security. So we're in a pretty tough spot. And as for food innovation, I have never thought about it, so I'm sorry about that. I can't really speak to that. But that's about all I wanted to say, Masicho.
Well, I suspect an invite's coming from Anders to come to his food lab, and I think you'll find very quickly that you have many innovative ideas. I'm just guessing, but I'll pass the floor to your right there.
Yeah, thank you. Bueno, trevor lustra med stratene kalasningana punga. Inu ya isitu minu ratut ilavana. My name is Trevor Lustrom, and I am one of the peoples of the Arctic from Greenland. I want to address two things. Firstly, that our food, our way of life, have been colonized to such a degree that our food has been criminalized on many levels, to such a degree that to this day we are still fighting many big entities, the UN, the EU, on rights for to be able to sell sealskin, for example, which we have an abundance of. I even heard someone call them the rats of the sea at some point because there was too many and they were eating our fish, and fish is our main industry to the rest of the world. So we have also other remnants of colonialism that kind of ensures that we cannot hunt our caribou in a way that we used to before. For us to harvest the skin of the caribou, we would have to wait sometimes for winter to be able to get the correct texture so it won't shed when we work with it. But now we're only allowed to hunt them in a certain season for a few months, which ensures that we cannot get the right cultural clothing anymore. Those have almost been lost. We have an area in Greenland also called Nesuttur, which means where we have a lot of reindeer skulls, basically, because we have a history of millennia of hunting reindeer. Besides hunting seal and other marine animals, we have been really good at harvesting all that we can, also the plants, both from the sea and from the land. Unfortunately, for many years we lost our knowledge of the different foods because it was a pretty smart idea to force us to use money to buy the grains and the meat from our colonizers and giving them another income in that way. So we, right now at the moment, have difficulties in selling our own products because we actually do sell food from our lands in our grocery stores, but they're extremely expensive, no matter where you go. But not only that, other kinds of food are expensive everywhere else in Greenland except for the capital. I live in the capital, and I only have to pay so and so much for fresh produce. But if I go north or south, suddenly I have to choose between rent and food. So the fact that you can only hunt for a certain period and that by regulation only some people can hunt so much, and if you hunt more then you will get a fine. There's a lot of regulations that makes no sense in our worldview but made sense, for example, in Denmark. And that's one of our main problems, that we have basically copy-pasted the regulations and the laws from Denmark and put them in Greenland, which is thousands of kilometers away. And so we have a lot of work we have to do to undo these regulations, to make space for our own values. And we have started to do that. On another more personal level, I have found out that I'm basically allergic to what the South makes. I cannot eat corn, I cannot eat onion, I cannot eat garlic, and I love Korean food. I cannot eat it without getting ill. So what it shows is my body right now can only eat food from my land, but also food I have found out from the lands from all across the Arctic, because we make food that makes sense for our stomachs, for our biomes. And so this idea of lateral collaboration when it comes to food is extremely important for me, because we have historical records that says our Eskimo has a headache again. Our Grönlander is feeling bad again. But all the other Inuit in the area were fine. It was only the person that was traveling with the expedition that would get ill, because they were eating what the expedition was eating, mainly onion. So apparently onion is our kryptonite. So I wanted to then come to, okay, then what have I started to do as innovation then, to be able to eat Greenlandic food without using all my money. So we have started to I'm not able to harvest anything myself. I cannot shoot anything. I always miss. So someone else has to do the hunting for me. But I have learned to harvest and how to dry it. We have our traditional way of drying and smoking. That takes a while, but I have recently, like I told Anders today, learned that we can dry them to a degree that they are like chips. They're dry as chips, but so it's easier for me to eat them when I travel, because usually when you travel by airplane, what they give you have onion or garlic or anything that I'm allergic to. So by having these dry products, not only reindeer, caribou, but also cod and other foods from our lands, have made it a lot easier for me to survive traveling the world, basically. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Hello, thank you. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Jon-Erik Näkkäläjärvi. Ellan Antta ja Iskuja Jon-Erik Päivi. I come from northern Finland, Inari, from reindeer herding family. So you can all tell by that I've been doing more and less things with reindeer all my little life, and by that it means we eat reindeer a lot in different forms, make clothes out of reindeer. And what was the question about food?
Food. What's important to you about food?
Well, obviously, we've been saying it many times, it's a livelihood, and now then there are this much people. I'm proud to say that reindeer meat is one of the most purest, nutritious and delicious foods in the world. And I say I have been working my whole life with reindeer, but I'm still not sure, can I tell the difference between caribou and reindeer? Thank you.
My name is, good afternoon everyone. My name is Lena Popova. I am from the Republic of Sakha-Yakutia. Could anybody raise his hands or her hands who knows about that, about the Republic of Sakha-Yakutia? Oh yeah, so it's, my republic is situated in the northeastern Siberia in Russia. So I come from a very small village called Arylach in central Yakutia. And answering the question why food is important for me, firstly, of course, it is important for me in the same way as it is important for all of you. It provides essential nutrients for my physical existence, right? And most importantly, for me, food is an integral part of my cultural traditions and heritage. Whenever I come back to my home and eat my traditional cuisine, I feel so much connection with my roots and my ancestors. And it is so different. It is distinct in a different way because spirit and energy behind all this food. So yeah, food represents for me my interconnectedness with the local land and environment. Thank you.
So I just want to pause for a second and acknowledge that we have heard from youth from, the North American Arctic and from the Yukon. We have 2 representatives. Way to go, Yukon. Greenland, Finland, and Russia. I mean, and in all of these cases, we're talking about incredibly strong and thoughtful responses and recognition of what the future has to hold and the role of these kinds of leadership opportunities. So I just want to, I think they need another round. So I think the work that's been done with the FoodLab and the role that youth have played is incredibly important. We have 2 more guests, and we are getting short on time, so which we knew, as you can see the size of the panel, that this was ultimately going to be the case. But I do want to give the floor to 2 more of our guests here today. And Klaus Stockvi, if you would like to introduce yourself and say a few words.
Thank you. Yes, I work as the director for the Center for High North Logistics, which is part of the Nord University. And we have been engaged in several of the projects that Anders has initiated. And of course, Anders has a business degree from Nord University. And that's the reason probably he's been so active to create this partnership over to the academic world. But the starting point for our engagement was actually looking at how can we get all this food from these areas, up in the north, out to the market, by using new shipping routes. And I'm leading a center that's been following this development for years. And the idea here was for us to see how can we bring food to the market. And also by this opening of new routes, also you have also a better support line, supply line to your areas. So it started with that. And then we'll have to look at how can we bring this stuff to the market? What opportunities can this bring to your community? And then we saw very quickly that we needed to design some courses. And how can we build capacity? How can we build competence in this environment? And how can we do this by both understanding, having dialogue, how can we make it more tailor-made to understand what the youth want to learn? That was a very interesting process for us. We managed to establish a course. I think we made a world record by getting this through the Nord University in 14 days, getting it approved as an academic course, but realizing that it's not easy to put people from different parts of the world into our Norwegian academic system. So we needed to see how flexible can we be, and that is very important if you want to build this. How can we tailor-made, how can we use the traditional knowledge in the design in the course and learn how you are preparing your stuff, and how can we do that in a better way together. We also designed some work how we could actually build some capacity at the existing business schools or schools out of Norway as well, by training teacher, doing like teacher program. We learned a lot during this process, and one of the good takeaways has been that there is a lot of innovation in the youth. How can we get that out? And how can we get your food out to the market? We believe we have so much good food in the Arctic, and you see it by this book, there is a lot of good recipes and stories behind. So I think I'll stop there.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And not last but not least, Halvor Johansen from the Arctic Portal.
Thank you. Well, I'm the outreach person, a networking person, and I've been working with the Reindeer Center for, I think it was back in 2005, I guess, when I slept in the lavabo in Kautokeino, and we woke up and it was like minus 26 inside the lavabo. It was an experience. From that time, I've had the opportunity to travel very widely, including to her hometown in Yakutia. Not her little town, but I've been to some of the little towns, like Narjunga. So I've had the privilege to travel to areas where probably most of you don't even know the name. And I've seen a lot. And I've learned that collaboration and outreach is the most important thing. I was lucky enough to be in Rome last year when the Labo was there at the UN, and I saw the importance and the magnet that it can be and is. So we actually applied for an application for dialogue, youth dialogue, using the Labo and the FoodLab as a base. We may not be successful, but I encourage all of you that have the opportunity to support that outreach, to really reach out to others and support that opportunity, because it's truly magnificent. On another note, philosophy of India is very simple. We live in one world. So on that note, I had the privilege to point out to you that one of my achievements was to support the arrival to Iceland, to the north, of 3 mamos from Colombia and the delegation from the Mother Earth and Fountain delegation. They're here to bring a message to the north. You may have seen them in the panel yesterday. So I encourage all of you youth to stick around after this session and talk to each other, mingle, because I think that is the key of everything, is to build the networks. And you're the next generation, it's your world, so you better take charge of it. Thanks.
So of course, you've heard a story about how food is so much more than just sustenance, which has been pointed out by so many people here. But of course, we have to give the last word to Anders, who is going to close us out in terms of what comes next, Anders. Where do we go from here?
Oh yes, a dream question, isn't it? Well, first of all, on behalf of World Reindeer Herders and our center, I would like to thank the youth, first and foremost. We feel your energy. And we are here to support you. Also, thank you, Chief Gary and Herb. It's very important to realize that in very foundational ways, we are strong when we are together. And so let's join forces to support our youth. That's the way ahead. To our Witchin brother, I'd like to say that innovation is about something new, right? But what is new, and new to whom? It's also about bringing to the fore things we know from before, and introducing them in new settings. So for instance, food innovation is also about bringing our traditional products to new markets. That's innovation, market innovation. So there are many ways in which we can do this, but it's very important to realize we are not afraid of fusion, food fusion, that's very popular these days. But in order to do that, you have to know your own. So you have to work with this. Working with food has taught us many things. I mean, working with the youth is as energizing as anything. And they teach us more than we are able to teach them. But working with food means for us as indigenous peoples that we work with all the things that are so important for us. Yes, it's about sustenance, but it's also about health. It's about our economy. It's about our languages. It's about our identity. Food is one of the strongest carriers of human identity. It's about our worldview, our philosophy, and it's about true sustainability. True sustainability. I say that because the word sustainable development is so overused these days that it really needs to be said. Now, we have come to the end of the program, but I have a suggestion, because we have here a wonderful panel, the coolest panel, was that a suggestion? But we also have a cool audience, right? So, friends of the Arctic peoples representatives, could we have a little poll? Like, I have a suggestion I want to check out. Should we bring the NOMAD Indigenous Food Lab here next year and put it up straight outside Harpa? Hang on. Those of you who oppose this idea, sit still. Those of you who support it can cheer in enthusiastic ways and go bananas. Good, we all agree. Thank you very much to everyone.